Welcome to the Brand Success Podcast, where you'll hear amazing stories from people like you who overcame their fears, frustrations, and obstacles on their way to brand success. Join us to be inspired by how they persevered, pivoted, and powered on to success. Not easy, but they did it, and so can you.
Hello, my friends. I'm Kay Wagner with Brand Success, and this is where we hear stories from people just like you, my friends, who have created successful brands. They found their secret sauce, the magic formula, and they have brand success. So today, I'm delighted because we have Emily Drost, who is going to share her story about her brand, Elify. And this is a company that she started 3 years ago. So, Emily, let's hear your secret sauce and magic formula for the brand success of Elify.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Kay. Elify has been a journey. This was something that originally came about when, I had been, it's a very personal story, actually. So it came about when I had been working. I spent over a decade in branding and advertising, and I worked at ad agencies and with some of the top brands in the world, really. And I loved my time there. But when my daughter was born, I really felt this strong calling to stay home with her. And it was so important for me to spend as much time as I possibly could with my daughter. It had been a rough journey getting to the point of having her and bringing her home. And I was just so pleased to have her. And she just became the light of my life. And so when that happened, I went through this rough transition where I had to go from working 80 hours a week, being on the road all the time, to transitioning to staying home, which for a woman who, or anyone for that matter, who has been working that many hours for that long, it's a big transition. And I finally got my groove and I started getting a little bit antsy because I felt like I wanted to get back into the workplace. And I started dabbling in my own businesses. And I had a boutique, I had a clothing shop, and I absolutely loved my time doing these. But one of the biggest struggles that I found, and that I found my fellow women entrepreneurs were having, was the balance. And how do they also have it all? And the biggest thing was that so many women were coming back and they were saying, I spend so much time working in my business rather than on it. Mm-hmm. And so I am trying to manage all of the follow-ups, all of my client and customer communications, and they're all dropping through the cracks. I was saying, I'm sorry, I forgot to follow up. More times than not, I found my fellow women entrepreneurs were doing the same thing. And then the other thing that I was constantly running into was I never had my business cards on me when, of course, I needed them the most. And so I sat there and I got connected with my business partners and we started chit-chatting about it, and Elify was born. And we came up with a way to help solve those problems, focusing on the small business owner. And we knew that there were solutions out there, but oftentimes they were costly. Oftentimes they were confusing or hard to use. The user experience wasn't the best. And so we really set out with the mission of, how do we develop technology that's affordable for the small business owner, no matter where they are in their journey, that's easy to use, simple, clean design, clean look and feel, and anybody can access it at any point in time, whether they're on their phones, their iPads, or their computers. They need to be able to access and have that information at their hands. So, that was where Elify came from. That's how it took off. That's where we got to where we are. And I think, our secret sauce with our successful brand is quite simple. We just stay true to ourselves and stay true to our premise and our goal, and that's to serve the small business owner. And one of the big things that I discovered is that if you can stay so hyper-focused, if you can just determine what is that one thing that we're really going to stand by, that we're really going to be great at, if you can focus on that, you're going to be successful, because all of that noise, all of the chit chat, all of the everything around you at any given time just sort of dissipates, and you're able to stay focused on what your end goal is and what it is that you're trying to achieve. And you kind of, you've heard the saying, you attract your tribe. You start attracting fellow business owners. You start attracting your clients based on what it is that you are staying so focused on, and they're going to start coming to you. And I think, honestly, that's been our biggest challenge. Is staying focused, especially as a technology company where we know that we can go in any given direction. It's hard to stay focused, and it's hard, especially I think as an entrepreneur, because you see your brand, you see your product, you see what you have to offer, and you see how it can be applied to every aspect of life, really. And it's easy to get distracted by that. And so in a way, you almost become your own worst enemy, because you start going down these different paths when really you just need to stay focused on that one thing. And that's been a challenge for me and my business partners. And I think it's a challenge that a lot of small business owners face in their time, is just staying focused. So, we've had our ups and downs. I think, that the journey of a small business owner of building a brand is never easy. In my decades worth of experience, I've worked with Fortune 500 companies, and I've worked with small startups. I've worked with companies that just had an idea and we're just trying to figure out, okay, what's our place in the marketplace, and what do we stand for? It's a hard journey to go down. It's exhausting. There are times when you're going to feel so beat up and like you couldn't possibly do this another day. And gosh, maybe it is easier to go back to corporate America and go back to my 9-to-5 job. The entrepreneur puts in more hours than anybody else, I think. I'm pretty sure. But it's so rewarding in the end, and you just got to stick with it and get through it. And our journey has been an interesting one, and it's had a lot of flows, a lot of ups and downs, but it's all part of the process, and it's all part of growing. And I think that's the really exciting part, and that's what really drives me to entrepreneurship, and really that's what drives me to small business owners, because I love experiencing it with our clients and with our user base, because they're going through the same things that I've gone through, or they're going through the same things that I will go through at some point in time. And it's wonderful to have that community there to work together.
Good.
Today, how would I characterize my brand? I would say that our brand is strong. Our brand, I, of course, coming from a background of branding and advertising, when I hear that question get posed, or when anyone asks me about my brand, I, of course, go to, all of the creative responses, and what is the brand in the marketplace, and where is it sitting, and what does it stand for? And I think that I would characterize our brand as a helping hand. We care so much about our clients, about our user base, that we truly want to help them succeed, not just with using our technology or applying it to their business, but truthfully, we want to teach them how to be stronger small business owners. And we want to guide them and mentor them and work with them through the ups and downs that they're going to be going through. And I think that because we as the business owners feel that way, the brand comes across that way. And it's hard for it not to. If that's the way that we're driving it and that's the way that we think about it, of course, the brand is going to reflect that.
Right.
So it's a strong brand, but a helpful and friendly one at the same time. So to someone wanting to build their brand, the three most important things are, number one, focus. Find your thing, right? Find that one thing that you just feel so strongly and so passionately about, and know that you need to just focus on that. For us, it's, as a small business owner, we want to support other small business owners. And we want to support them in two ways. One, making introductions, so that digital business card. And two, with mastering the art of follow-up. So you're not having to say, I'm sorry all the time. So we drive everything we do with that relationship management in mind, from the life cycle, from introduction to close of business. And we focus on that so heavily that everything that we do is ladders up to that. And it's incredibly important for any brand to have that. The other thing that I would tell you is, number two, you cannot be all things to all people. You're going to have to say no. And it's okay. And it's so important that you learn to say no and that you feel okay saying it. Because otherwise, your business isn't going to be driven in the direction that it needs to be driven, and you're going to be overwhelmed, and your brand isn't going to have a clear identity. And that's so important, especially when everybody is getting hit left and right with so much information, whether it's their phones, their computers, wherever they are, they're just getting hit all of the time. Be okay with saying no. And I would say sort of the last thing that anybody who's starting a brand needs to keep in mind, and this goes along the same vein as being focused, and you can't be all things to all people, but also be authentic. You need to be authentic to yourself. And it's when you start having those hard conversations with yourself or with your business partners that I think the magic really happens, because that's when you get to sort of beat up whatever your ideas are and really get down to the nuts and bolts of what you're trying to do, trying to achieve, trying to say, trying to be. And that's only going to continue to drive your ability to say no, your ability to focus. Don't be afraid of those hard conversations. Don't be afraid of being truly authentic to yourself. And again, you're going to attract your tribe. They're going to come to you as long as you're true to yourself and don't try to be something you're not. It's just not worth it in the end.
Right.
So one of the things that I get asked a lot is, what do you wish you would have done differently? And I always laugh and chuckle at that question, because I feel like there's so many things I wish I would have done differently, right? Hindsight is 20/20. And I sit here and I go, man, what if I had run that meeting differently? Or what if I had accepted that contract when it really wasn't a great offer at the time? Where would I be now? I think one of the biggest things that I wish I would have done differently was A, start sooner. Don't be afraid. Right. And B, I wish I would have learned the true importance of focusing sooner. Mm-hmm. I think, but with that being said, it's so important that we go through what we go through, because it gets you to where you are and it just makes you stronger. You come out the other end and so much more. And I think that's why I always laugh, because I sit and look at what I or others would possibly characterize as mistakes or things we shouldn't have done. And I sit here and I go, yeah, but man, it was so important for me to learn that lesson.
Right.
It was so important for me to go through that.
Right. So what do you see as the future for your brand?
So I'm really excited about where we're headed. As a brand, we are just continuing to establish ourselves as the small business, not leaders, but the small business supporters. And I'm really excited about that because it gives us the opportunity to really dig in on the relationship life cycle that our clients are trying to manage. And I'm pleased as punch. I'm thrilled because businesses, brands are starting to realize what consumers have been telling them for years. And this is me getting a little bit on my soapbox, so bear with me. But personalization is so important this day and age. And people are because of all that noise, and also people have gotten to a point where they're sitting here and they're questioning, am I talking to a real person or am I talking to a robot? And the minute we start asking ourselves that question, people start questioning the authenticity of a brand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important that as brand owners, we are able to personalize and build relationships. And it's those relationships that are going to help you get through the tough times of your business. And they're the ones who are going to bring you more business. They're the ones that are going to help you grow. Those relationships are so important. And we hear so often, oh, you need to automate, make the technology work for you. And there's a huge difference between having the technology do your job and making the technology work for you. And what you're probably sitting here going like, what does that mean? And here's my example. My technology in particular, we purposefully have not built in autoresponders. We purposely have not made it so that it just emails people automatically. There's technology out there that does that, and there's a time and a place for that. But when you're making an introduction, when you are trying to establish a relationship with somebody, you need to be in there, and there needs to be a real human being behind the wheel, having those conversations and building that relationship. And you may feel like there's no possible way that you can manage a million relationships that you need to manage as a business owner or a brand owner. But it's so important that you do get involved in your business on a daily basis. One of my tips or tricks for business owners out there, get involved in your customer support team. If you haven't done this, and if you have a customer support team, and if you haven't done this, go do it. And I want you to go spend a day or 2 hours, 3 hours answering customer support. Answer tickets, take phone calls, get on the phone with your customers and your clients. Introduce yourself as the owner and president or CEO or whatever your role is. Introduce yourself as such. It's going to make such a huge impact on your clients' lives, on your customers' lives, because they're going to sit there and they're going to say, I cannot believe I just had a conversation with the president of the company and they cared enough about me that they reached out. I love, love, love to do that. And what's great is sometimes I get clients or customer support tickets and they're coming in hot and they're upset or they're frustrated or whatever. And I get on the phone with them and I chat with them. And by the end of it, they're our biggest brand champion because I took the time to connect with them on a one-to-one level. They weren't talking to a robot. They weren't talking to just somebody behind a desk. They had a real conversation with somebody. And that's, the thing that we hear about this all of the time, but people don't take the time to do that anymore. And it's my biggest tip. And it's the most exciting part about where our company is going, because we're going to continue to support brands and businesses and being able to do that. And I look forward to seeing how in this day and age, with the way that technology is going and smart homes and all of this, how the idea of a relationship changes and how the idea of managing a relationship changes.
Right. So I think, Emily, you hit on a couple of really specific key pain points for small business owners. So I've been a small business owner and entrepreneur for 30 years. And, I see how companies that we work with, entrepreneurs, small business owners that we work with, have the exact same pain points that you and I have had, right? And those are, the first one that you mentioned is really staying focused. I kind of have a personal belief that entrepreneurs by their nature have business ADD.
Right. They so do. It's so true. Yes.
Yeah. And so everybody, has that shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
Do you have, or how did you specifically, how do you stay focused?
Sure. So for me, I practice a couple of things. I have found that the most important thing for me is to take care of myself physically. Okay. And so when I start feeling like my mind is going down a path that maybe it shouldn't be going down with, oh, I could do this, or, oh, I could do that. I do really simple things. I go for a little walk, or I go for a run. I practice yoga, and I start every day with a meditation. And it's, people oftentimes, they say meditation, how you spend 30 minutes sitting there, just no. Like, I honestly, it could be 5 minutes just sitting in my bed before I get up for the morning. And I just sit there and I clear my mind. And I find that helps me stay focused, because it's practicing sort of the mind control in a way.
Right.
It helps me sort of strengthen those muscles of my mind in, okay, this is where I need to be. Meditation has really changed the way that I stay focused, because it forces you, the whole purpose of it is just to clear your mind. And you actively have to practice clearing your mind. It's not an easy task to do, especially, I think, for the entrepreneur. I agree with you so much. So the meditation, going for walks, things like that just, if I know that I'm starting to go sort of down the path that maybe I shouldn't go down, I need to just step away for a little bit and recollect my thoughts. And often too, sometimes I will have days where I will meditate in the middle of the afternoon.
Yeah.
And I will do it just because I need to recenter myself and I need to get back on track.
It's like we all need a reset button.
Right? I've said that so many times. And I think it's hard too, because, my business partner and I were just talking about this yesterday. He and I tend to feed off of each other very much, and he'll start going with an idea, or I'll start going with an idea. And next thing we know, we've built an entire new company in our minds and in discussion, because we've thought of a new way to apply our technology or where to take our technology next. And we've gotten to the point where we allow ourselves to do that every so often. But then we always have to come back to, okay, the reality is this is where we're at. Can we actually take this on right now? Do we have the capacity for this? Or is this the right business move? We force ourselves to go through that part of the conversation and ask those hard questions. Again, going back to that idea of you can't be all things to all people. And that's sort of where we have to come back to that.
Right. Yeah. So I just had that conversation with a friend of mine who owns her own business as well. And she was telling me about this new business idea that she had, and she was so excited about it. And I said to her, you know what? Just write it out, put it, somewhere where you can look at it when you want to, And in 2 or 3 days, it'll pass.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can get back to what you really need to focus on. So
Yeah.
I think part of it is really knowing yourself, and knowing that you do get like a dopamine hit in the brain.
Yeah.
And you come up with new ideas.
Yes.
And so you just kind of got to say, okay, it's like when somebody's on a diet and they have a piece of candy.
Right.
And it's a great experience, but you got to go back to the diet.
Right. Right.
You can't be like on the candy all the time.
Right.
So
I heard once where somebody said at one point in time, or something said somewhere, we only have so much self-control that we can use in a day. And so that's where I think, as entrepreneurs, it's so important for us to keep that in mind. We only have so much self-control that we can use in a day. And it's okay to go down the path. And this is what my business partner and I talk about, as long as it's not a distraction, as long as we know that, okay, it's a day when we don't have a million other things to do, we can spend some time ideating on this other concept, and we'll put it on a whiteboard or lock ourselves in a room and go through it, whatever we need to do to kind of get it out of our system, because we only have so much self-control in a day.
That's true. And, that's a very interesting idea, because from a marketing and sales perspective, that's true for everybody. And as you go through the day, that self-control level comes down. Yeah. And I think that's why infomercials are so successful in the evening and at night. Yeah. Because people's self-control
no more left
has come down. They're like, yeah, I'll buy it, whatever. The other thing that I wanted to mention that you talked about, which I think is also a key issue for entrepreneurs, small business owners, coaches, whatever, is what you called mastering the art of follow-up.
Yeah.
So we do all of this marketing and, automations and funnels and all of that stuff we're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens when we don't follow up?
Yeah.
And following up is an important part of it, but for some reason, it's really difficult for people.
It is. And I think, in my experience, I've come up with a few hypotheses as to why it's so hard for people to follow up. It seems like sort of the pointless part of the day, because you look at all of these other things that you have to get done and you think, gosh, there's no possible way that running my business is going to happen unless I get these things done. And then you sit there and you start going, oh gosh, having this conversation with this one person is not going to make or break me. And it does break you. So I have a few tips and tricks that I've come up with over the years for, how to master the art of follow-up. First and foremost, do it in the morning. Do it in the morning, get it out of the way. And my favorite part about doing all of my follow-ups in the morning is that then that sort of puts the ball in the other person's court, and they have to manage it throughout the day. And they're the ones who have to then adjust their schedule for the day and get back to you and get you what you're looking for or answer your whatever. So it gets it off your plate, and you can start your day with a fresh, okay, I'm going to do my follow-ups. I'm going to spend 15, 20 minutes a day just reaching out and saying hello, or just sending a quick note, or replying to all of my emails. And then I have the rest of the day to be heads down, focusing on whatever else I need to focus on that is most likely in my business type stuff. That is going to keep me running a mile a minute. But I know that if I don't do it, nobody else is going to do it, or nobody else can do it. So it has to get done by me. And then that allows me to then close my day with coming in and sort of checking in on those follow-ups,
Right.
and maybe closing out the conversation, or it helps me get set up for the next day. So I always try and start my day with the follow-ups and end my day with the follow-ups. And then the in-between is for getting the work done.
Good tip. Very good tip. And you know what's interesting about that is what we just talked about, which is you have the most self-control in the morning.
Yeah.
And discipline.
Yeah.
So you can be more disciplined in the morning and get that task done.
Yeah.
Because as the day goes by, you're going to lose more and more ability to be disciplined.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't tell you this, Emily, but we do a quiz. A brand quiz at the end of the session. Now, here's the thing, not to worry. It's a brand preference quiz. So you can't fail.
Okay.
So I am going to ask you about 2 different brands.
Sure.
And then you tell me which one you like best and why.
Okay.
So let's start with Pepsi versus Coke.
Oh gosh, that is one that I actually write about a lot, and we always talk about it in advertising. From a branding perspective, I love Pepsi. From a product perspective, I love Coke. I'm sorry, Coke, but I love what Pepsi does from a branding standpoint. Pepsi years and years and years ago, they used to be the sort of the cheap alternative to Coke. That was how they got started. And they found that they were never sort of overcoming Coke or overcoming the market share. But the thing that they had found was that being sort of the cheap alternative to Coke, they had hit a younger audience segment because typically it's the younger people who can't afford the nicer products, et cetera.
Right.
And they started owning it. And this is why I love Pepsi, because then in about the 40s and 50s, they owned their youth, in my opinion. And they just took it to the next level. And now today, when you think of Pepsi, you think of superstars, you think of, all of their commercials, you think of pop music, the trendiness, what's going on right now. Coke is sort of that solid, stable. It's always there. It doesn't really have to quote unquote compete. But Pepsi is there. Pepsi is bringing it. Pepsi just lives by that youth brand, and they've just catapulted themselves. And that's why now all of a sudden it's Coke versus Pepsi.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah.
Okay. BMW or Mercedes?
Mercedes. Because I feel like Mercedes as a brand does a better job of staying true to themselves. They really truly are the brand of luxury. And everything they do just drips luxury. BMW, I feel like as a brand, they have gotten lost over the years, and they've tried to be trendy. They've tried to be hip, and they try to be luxurious. Just stick with something and do it. Do it well. Is my take on everything. So Mercedes.
Good. Okay. Uber versus Lyft.
I don't know that I have an opinion on that one.
Okay.
I would have to say Lyft, because I feel like their little pink mustaches, they've tried to make the car ride concept fun and a little bit more obvious.
Okay, good. Okay, now this question is not a brand preference question. Okay. This is our last question.
Okay.
There was a recent research document released on the top 25 most loved brands in America.
Yeah. Okay.
And the question is, what do you think is the number one top brand, I would say most loved and probably most used brand in America?
P&G.
What?
P&G. No. Who is it?
So I'll give you some clues.
Okay.
So it could be bricks and mortar, but it's not.
Okay.
It's where everybody...
Oh, Amazon.
Yes.
Okay.
You got it. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't think of that one.
Yeah. So, I mean,
obvious.
As a brand, it would seem obvious. But, I mean, it's kind of a really wide open question, really.
It is. I could sit and talk about Amazon all day, but one of the things that I love about Amazon as a business structure is they have Amazon, their main brand, but now they've started breaking off into all of these smaller brands. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I think, small business owners should pay attention to, and why they should start putting more emphasis on building personal relationships. Everything goes in cycles, okay? What is Amazon now all of a sudden rolling out with? Amazon Books. But what is Amazon Books? They're brick and mortar bookstores. Mm-hmm. And show of hands, who here remember, Barnes and Noble, but what was the other big bookstore that closed shortly before that? Yeah. Borders. Right. So you think about the fact that, people were moving away from books, massive Goliaths like Borders were closing. Right. And now Amazon, here they are 20 years later. I don't know when Borders closed, 15 years ago, long enough ago that I remember when they closed. Right. And here they are now opening bookstores. Mm-hmm. And in theory, that competes with their own brands, the Amazon Kindle, which is all ebooks, but it's because people are starting to go back to bookstores. So guys, small business owners, put some emphasis on your personal relationships because it's back in style and it's cyclical and people really want that.
Right. I think there is always a human need to connect. Uh-huh. And to go to a place, which is really Starbucks's, the philosophy of space.
Oh, yeah.
Space as a place where you want to be because that's where the rest of the tribe is.
Well, it's so true. And I remember, it's fascinating because I remember when iPhones first came out and everybody was fearful of buying online. Oh my gosh, I'm going to put my credit card in my phone. Like, there's no way. I can't put that in there. And when that happened, then all of a sudden, I remember when Facebook came out, then Facebook comes out, and maybe it happened simultaneously. And I remember I was in college. I remember sitting in a class and a professor was talking about stranger danger with Facebook and how, you need to think about the way that you're portraying yourself and just the fact that we were going through, you shouldn't put this on there. You shouldn't be careful of what you put on the internet. You don't know who you're actually talking to. And I think in a way we've sort of just been overstimulated by that concept of now all of a sudden everybody puts everything on Facebook. Everybody puts everything on social media. Everybody stores their credit cards on their phone. I'm like, man, I don't have my wallet. I'm fine. I got my phone because I'll pay for it with my phone.
Right.
When something first comes out, we're fearful of it. And then it's sort of human nature. We get comfortable with it. We get used to it. Okay, now it's a huge part of our lives. But I think when all of that happened and when smartphones came out and Facebook came out, we got really excited about it and we dove into it and we took full control and full concept and started loving this virtualness to life and automate everything and automate communications and let's put everything to work. And then all of a sudden now people are coming back around and they're saying, I miss going to the bookstore. I miss sitting and talking with my friends over coffee. I haven't actually seen my friends in a month. Maybe I should go see them for a drink sometime or anything along those lines. And so everything is cyclical. And I think people have just sort of saturated the concept of automation, and now they're coming back to, I want that real human connection again.
Yeah, and I think what happens too is we get used to the new technology and we get very familiar with it. And I think if we're not careful, we get careless.
I agree with that too.
And we get careless and we forget about the people. We forget about the human connection.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that so much.
Emily, thank you so much. I'm glad we had a human connection today because it's been great.
I really enjoyed this. Thank you. Good. This was my pleasure. This was really wonderful. So thank you so much for having me on.
And so to my friends out there who've been listening and watching, I'm Kay Wagner with Brand Success. I hope that you enjoyed our session with Emily today. I know that I did. And so we're looking forward to having all of you, my friends, come back for our next session. And for now, that's a take. Bye-bye.
You just heard another great formula for brand success. What's your secret sauce or magic formula? Post your story on our Facebook page called Brand Buzz. Then come back soon for the next brand success story that's cooking up right now.